Hi, this is Craig Stocks. I want to give a short overview of how I processed this photo. This is a photo of the comet Neowise, and what makes this a little bit different, I guess, is that I used Photoshop to stack multiple frames and average those to reduce noise. So I wanted to walk through the process for doing that. The images started in Capture One as raw images, and this was photographed with about an 85 millimeter field of view. And the rest of the settings, this was ISO 16, or I'm sorry, ISO 3200 for 6 seconds at f4.0. So I did all the basic processing here in Capture One, and then output these files as PSD files. You could also use TIFF files, and at this point I just used an 8-bit format. At that point then I will go to Photoshop, and we want to open these files as a stack. So I'll go to File, Scripts, Load Files into Stack, and you get a window to select the files that you want to open. So if I select Browse, here are the files that I created, and I'm just going to choose 3 of those because it's the same process whether it's 3 or 10 or 50. It's just more tedious the more files you have. So click OK, and then OK to open those, and those 3 files will open as different layers in one Photoshop document. So we'll have one document with 3 layers, and each layer will have that exposure of the comet. Now if we zoom in, we can see some issues. There's a little bit of trailing in the stars and also quite a bit of noise. And stacking is the tool that we're going to use to reduce noise. But the first thing we'll have to look at is whether or not they're aligned. And I'm sure they're not because I wasn't using a tracking device. So if I select the first layer and then shift click on the bottom layer, that will select all layers, and I can put these in lighten blending mode, and what we see now is that's revealing how much star trailing there was, and we also see some plane trails coming through a few of the layers. There's a little bit over here and some up here. So I want to clean up those plane trails, and then also we'll align the layers manually. So let's turn off all but the bottom layer, and I'll activate just the bottom layer. So now we can see these trails are on that layer. So I'll grab the spot healing brush and just click at one end, shift click at the other end, and remove the trails that are on that layer. Now I'll turn on the layer above it, and we can see that it has a plane trail here. I'll remove that. And there's a little bit over here. We'll remove this. And now we need to align it. And if I select the Move tool, you can see as I move it around, I can align the stars. And with a little bit longer focal length like this, you can just use the Move tool. You can use the cursor keys to move it around and nudge it into place. And the idea is just to get the star as small as possible. Now I'll turn that layer off, turn on the layer above it, and it's important you always want to align everything to one layer. So in this case I'm aligning everything to that bottom layer. Again, I'll switch to the spot healing brush, take out the plane trails. Again here, click and shift click to take out the trail there. Now we need to align this one. We'll go to the Move tool and just move that layer up so that the stars are as aligned as we can get them. And that looks pretty good. Now I can turn on all 3 layers, select all layers, and if I had 10 layers I would just keep doing this until I've done every layer, always aligning to the bottom layer. Now I can right click on the layer stack, choose Convert to Smart Object, and the reason I'm converting it to a smart object is in order to use the averaging, the mean or median stacking mode, you have to convert it to a smart object. and actually I should have converted those back to normal rather than light and blending mode. So I'm just going to quickly undo that step, change my blending mode back to normal, and now we'll go to convert to Smart Object. There's different options for stacking mode. Mean is the one that's used most often with astrophotography, and the reason is all this digital noise is random, and by averaging the pixels from each frame, the noise kind of averages out. So now that that's converted to a smart object, we can go to Layer, Smart Objects, Stack Mode, and choose Mean, and it will calculate the arithmetic average for every pixel position, and you'll notice the noise just kind of melts away. And the more layers you have, the better the noise reduction will be. Let me bring this over. You can see the progress bar. It's not an especially fast process, but it does get the job done. And once this is done, by having a lot more data, especially in the dark areas, it lets you stretch the image more effectively. If you need to brighten up the some of the subtle, faint signatures and nebulas or stars or wherever, it just gives you more flexibility. If you have enough memory, it's not a bad idea to convert to a 16-bit image before you do this, and that gives you just a little bit more flexibility, and you'll be less prone to getting banding. So that gives us the averaged image. The last thing I might want to do is round these stars up a little bit. So this is a technique I showed before. I will stamp a new layer. And for some reason that didn't work, so I'll just do a Control J. So now we have a duplicate. I can grab the Move tool, put this layer in Darken blending mode, and then use the sky to cover up the little star trails so that we have round stars instead of stretched out stars. And of course, since the stars were stretched out, most likely the comet was stretched out also. And now we have nice round point stars and less noise than we started with. And then from this point, you would just do whatever types of processing you would normally want to do to an image. I hope you found this useful, and have a nice day.